Let's bring in our guy, Brad Powers, down there in sunny Las Vegas. Brad, how you making out today?
Doing well. Good to see. I gotta admit, I love seeing that Dolphins gear. If you're a certain age, I think a lot of people gravitated towards the Dolphins, especially that old school color and logo combination. For the life of me, I can't believe that they don't go back to that permanently.
Yeah, some of the best throwbacks in the NFL. I don't know why. I often tell people I don't know why I picked the Miami Dolphins as a team to cheer for, but they're in my
Dan
heart
Marino?
now. Maybe some people point to the Ace Ventura connection.
I like that.
But I'm having the time of my life cheering for the Dolphins. But I know from last year, which was a total roller coaster ride, it got very dark due to the two concussions that it can all fall apart. So I'm not going to get too high just yet. So we'll give that some more time to breathe. But a handful of or two college football picks to get in here too, Brad, and a couple of questions on the back end. And one right now, any big takeaways from this past weekend of the college football action?
I think the biggest one would be a missed opportunity for Notre Dame to get a signature win from Marcus Freeman. A quality spot for them to move up the championship future board. Sam Hartman Heisman futures, took a massive hurting from that performance. It was there for the taking. They didn't make a play at the end. Kudos for Ohio State on the road to win that last second thrilling finish. That would probably be one. The other one, Florida State didn't play their best game, weren't the healthiest, but they somehow found a way to win a big road game against Clemson. So that's two big wins for them. They can. You look at the rest of their schedule; they're going to be significant favorites. So the big win for them, because I don't see a lot of resistance for Florida State down the rest of the path. So that would probably be the two biggest ones.
I think it's fair to say Notre Dame a bit overrated as a football program based on their history.
That's a good question. I mean, I think they're probably the last few years properly rated. They beat the teams for the most part. I mean, outside of they had a couple hiccups last year, but they beat the teams they should. They just never win the big games. So and that's the ones that everyone watches, but they're typically an underdog in all those games. And, they're a 3-point dog on Saturday night, lost by 3. So they're actually been pretty consistent over the last 5-6 years. Now, over the last 30 years, I mean, they just don't win any of these big games. I mean, their record in top 10 matchups is now 4-20 the last 30 years when both teams are ranked in the top 10. So, yeah, when they play a very high-quality opponent, hasn't bode well for Notre Dame here recently.
4-20. Wow. Not good.
That's
okay,
rough.
so
That's Purdue, not Notre Dame.
Yeah. So, okay. So a couple of picks here, then a few more questions. So a duo on your radar to jump on right now. Syracuse taking on Clemson. We have a 7-point spread for this one. Now, what do you think for this game?
Yeah, a couple factors. Number one, I'm worried about what we call in the industry the dream crusher. What does that mean? It means that Clemson's path to the national championship is no longer there. How does a program handle this situation? That has not been the case for this program in quite some time, already out of the national title race here in the month of September. I mean, you got to go back a decade at this point. It was a very emotional game, went to overtime. You lost it. You have 2 losses now. How do you bounce back? And, oh, yeah, by the way, you're going up to the Carrier Dome. It used to be called the Carrier Dome, but that's what it's been known for 40 years. But you're going up to Syracuse, a Syracuse team that has played Clemson very tough. The last 6 years, Syracuse has one outright win as a major dog. They have 3 other games where they played Clemson within 1 possession. And I'm here to tell you, this year's Clemson team isn't as good as those previous 5-6 Clemson teams. And this year's Syracuse team might be better than those previous 5-6 Syracuse teams that has given Clemson a lot of difficulty. I think it's a hyped up atmosphere there, even with a noon start. Let's go ahead and take the Orange +7. And I am confident enough here. Let's sprinkle a little bit on the money line here on Syracuse.
Yes, sir. All right. Upset alert. Next up, LSU Ole Miss. We have a short spread here, 2.5 points. Who do you think comes out on top here?
Yeah, we're going to lay the 2.5 with LSU. Had a near upset loss last week against Arkansas. It might have been a wake-up call for them. But it's more of a play against Ole Miss. I haven't really liked what I've seen from Ole Miss all season. That's saying something considering that they've covered 3 of their 4 games, but a lot of phony finals. Let's start with Tulane. That was a 20-17 ball game in the middle of the 4th quarter against a Tulane team playing with their backup quarterback. Easily could have been a loss. Looks like a great final with Ole Miss winning by 17. against Georgia Tech, middle of the fourth quarter. It's a 10-point game. Final says Ole Miss won by 25. A little bit misleading there. And then last week in the second half, Alabama dominated them. A game that a lot of people thought Ole Miss might have a chance to beat Alabama outright and look good in the first half. But the reality is that was a very physical game. Jackson Dart, the quarterback for Ole Miss, took a lot of heavy shots. I just wonder, can he bounce back after a very physical game and be 100%? I don't think that's the case here. Let's lay under a field goal here with the Tigers.
Okay, 2 to jump on right away. Of course, Brad will be back with us on Thursday to break down the big games, but a few more topics I want to touch on here, Brad. Heisman futures. Caleb Williams now has some company at the top of the odds board. Penix Jr. Tied with Williams on the odds board at DraftKings. He's actually ahead of him over at FanDuel. So my question to you, Caleb Williams has been the favorite basically forever, as far as I know. He can be had at plus 420 over at FanDuel. You think it's a good time to jump on him right now, or is it Penix Jr.'s award to win?
I'll put it in this way. I made 10 Heisman bets over the summer, 10 different quarterbacks. Not one of them was Caleb Williams. I think generally speaking, people are looking for a reason not to give someone the Heisman back-to-back years. It's only happened one time in the history of the award. So I wasn't big, this was nothing knock against Caleb Williams' ability or USC's. It's just people like storylines. So that's what you're handicapping with the Heisman. And we've already seen the story with Caleb Williams. That's why he won the Heisman last year. So I don't disagree with the move. In fact, Washington, you look at them as a team, I think they're a little bit better than USC. Now they have to go on the road later down the line and play USC, so we'll see what happens there. But right now, I think Michael Penix deserves to be the favorite. You look at QBR, number 1 in the country. You look at the passing stats, number 1 in the country. This is a very pass-friendly offense. They'll continue to put up big numbers, and we'll see. A couple weeks down the road, there'll be a big game against Oregon, Washington hosting Oregon. Bo Nix, another Heisman contender. Right now, that one's in Washington, in Seattle. I favor Washington in that game. And then, if Washington takes care of business, we might be seeing Michael Penix odds even shorten considerably even after that.
Wow. Okay, so let's wrap things up with a betting advice question. Of course, we're big proponents of jumping on some lines early. Often advise don't be getting all your bets in for college football on Saturday morning. So what advice would you give to novice sports bettors, especially when it comes to getting your bets in earlier in the week?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It might be the question in the industry because the market tends to move quicker and quicker with each year. I would say, first and foremost, have a good set of power ratings if you want to jump early on in the process. What do I mean by a good set? One that usually, is relatively close to market, predicts line moves. Where can you find those? I think there's some free ones out there that are basic, decent quality. Jeff Sagarin, that was, back part of the BCS process. If you can remember that, if you're an old timer, 25 years ago, all through that time during college football. Bill Connolly does a really good job for ESPN. He has his SP Plus power ratings. I publish a set of power ratings. So having a good set of power ratings, if you don't want to do it yourself, would be step 1. Step 2, this sounds really basic, but man, the market's not too complicated. This time of year, we have teams that have covered every single game at this point or have failed to cover every single game at this point. You tend not to overthink things, and something's mispriced in the marketplace. So if you want to get in front of some line moves, generally, if a team's covered every single game up until this point, they're likely to get bet on, not against, for the upcoming week. Similarly, on the other side, if a team hasn't covered a point spread, Vanderbilt's 0-5 against the number. What do we see in the marketplace already in the first 24 hours since the lines have been released? Well, their opponent this week, Missouri, is taking money in the marketplace. So don't overthink things. Keep it simple. Just find your teams that are really good against the spread or are bad. And typically we see the market until the losses pile up or wins pile up for teams that haven't covered, we see the market continue to price those teams. They get a little bit more expensive as the week goes on, if that makes sense.
Yes, sir. Okay, some wise words from Brad there. So make sure you follow that advice and maybe hit a couple more winners this weekend with your college football picks. Okay, Brad, thank you very much for joining us today. We'll catch you again on Thursday when we take a look at some of the bigger games on the Week 5 college football schedule.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.